Lunch with the Legends. Greg Romero is here today. You know, GT, Auburn, Robinson, Boss. I met him when he was like 12. We're going to talk about that. But welcome to the show, Greg. This particular episode is brought to you by the New Jersey BMX Hall of Fame, which I am the organizer of, and we will be moving our September 27th date to spring. Why? So it's bigger and better for you. So please share this with all your East Coast buddies. Come on down, have a great time, and let's go on with the show. Holly Dunn is watching. All right, here we go. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're here live, man. Let's do this.
All right, so
people are on.
You can read it off. Who's on right now? Holly's on. That's cool. All right, so Greg, I always start the show with, what's your first recollection of a bicycle? It doesn't even have to be BMX. Can you remember?
Oh, wow. First recollection of a bicycle. Really good question. I would say, for me, honestly, it was watching the neighborhood kids ride bikes.
That's usually the case.
That's usually the case, and I think I had a bike that had, weird handlebars, and it had a fender and it had a coaster brake.
Nice. Were you emulating motorcycles at that time?
I don't know what I was emulating, honestly. I just remember that my bike had training wheels.
Okay.
I think maybe I was 4 years old, and basically, I remember one of the neighborhood kids was telling my father that, hey, you should probably take his training wheels off because the training wheels are not touching the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're where was this at?
This was in Daly City.
Wow.
Yeah, Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I was born in Daly City, and I was pretty much raised in the East Bay.
Okay.
Of a place called San Ramon.
I know San Ramon.
Yeah, San Ramon.
Wow, that's incredible.
Rough streets.
So how do you parlay that into riding the streets with friends to actually racing?
I have a great story, but I'm actually going to save it for the Hall of Fame speech.
Or you can just practice today without me. We're going to get to the Hall of Fame as well.
You know what? Pretty much it was just about, I was really fortunate. I would say that my neighborhood had a lot of well-to-do kids riding Hutches, Diamondbacks.
Wow.
People were already on the Chrome Motley 80s bikes that all the racers wanted. And just watching those kids riding around on those bikes. And also Mongoose and Mongoose Motomag wheels, and my neighbor had a pair of Motomag wheels. And
What year was this?
this was I would say 1982.
Nice.
1980, 81, 82, and then I started racing in 83.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you were, because I met you were like 12 or something.
12, that would be 1987, 88?
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
You're older with all the numbers.
Yeah.
No, it is, because I was friends with Cecil.
Yes.
And it was in Maryland, I think, on summer tour somewhere back east at an ABA race. And he said, you look hungry. And I said, dude, I'm starving. He goes, come out and eat. So Carlo bought me dinner. And I met you and your dad.
Yeah.
And you were at 12. It had to be.
Yes.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, it's in Maryland or one of those East Coast races.
One of the East Coast races,
Yeah.
yes.
It's
Yes.
amazing. I
Yeah.
remember. Your dad's Manny, super cool.
Yeah, Manny.
Yeah.
I was really fortunate. Manny worked for the airlines, and I would say, I think we were an average middle class family. But my father working for the airlines was certainly an advantage because I would be able to fly for free and actually travel. So he didn't have to collect a bunch of debt on his credit card traveling to races.
Wow. And Carlo like that, right? Or whomever you were racing for.
I don't know if he was able to take care of anyone else except for myself and my
but it's
my
one
siblings.
less expense, right?
It's very
for the team.
yeah, certainly, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
For my sponsors, they didn't have to worry about travel expenses. Yeah, thousands. Yes.
Do you remember your first race?
My first race, yes, absolutely. It was in 1983 in Sonoma. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. What did you think about going in?
I just remember that one of the kids that was a neighbor, his father used to play for the Oakland A's. The last name was Williams, and the kids were DJ, and I forgot the younger one that I was friends with, and we went out to the track. I didn't travel with them to the track, but I remember congregating with them in the pit area and whatnot, and I just remember it was a day of just trying to figure everything out. I remember going through 3 motos, and in one of the motos, I fell, got a front flat tire, and someone was trying to help me. Like the people in the pit area there was so much going on, but what was cool was the camaraderie of the family vibe of people wanting to help me and my mother change a front tire.
Wow.
I was 8 years old. I didn't know how to change a front tire. And, change the tube. And I remember making the main, and then I figured it out. I put it all together and won the main.
No, that same day.
Yeah.
So you won your first.
So I didn't qualify on first moto, fell second moto, qualified third moto, then won the main.
Wow.
And then,
That's instantly you're hooked.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was.
And what bike was that?
It was a Diamondback Silver Streak. Yeah, that was my
Awesome.
first real race bike. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And what track was that?
This was it was affectionately known as Fremont BMX.
Yeah.
But it wasn't technically in Fremont. It was actually in a city called Sunol.
Okay.
Which is kind of like Livermore, kind of like weird, like 680, 580. I don't know, just kind of a off-beaten path.
That was a pretty. Fremont was huge. They had a national there in 1980, I believe.
Yes.
You remember a picture of Stu in the magazines on Redline? Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So what's your mom think? Wow, my son's got some skills.
I don't know what she was thinking. Honestly, I think she took me to another race, and then that was it. My father took over from there.
Yeah.
I think my father was just trying to get me involved in sports, and for some reason football wasn't an option. I don't know why there was maybe an argument between my parents, and but my father certainly tried to get me into baseball, and I absolutely was horrific in baseball. I couldn't even get a base hit.
Right.
So I think racing was something that, like, okay, hey, Greg is doing well at it. Let's just keep supporting him with that. So
Would you have ended up in the Baseball Hall of Fame? That's the question.
no.
Come on, let's dream a little.
But football is truly one of the sports that I wish, honestly, that I explored more often as a youth. And because I played really, really darn well in high school. I was really strong. I mean, in BMX you learn how to get the snap, and in football is all about getting the snap
What
off the
position
line.
were you playing?
I played pretty much everything except for quarterback. Yeah, so running back, receiver, defensive line.
Wow.
Defensive line was fun because it was pretty much watch the lights and just shoot gaps and sack the quarterback, right? You just be quicker than everybody. That's football.
Wow.
Football is all about the first two steps, man.
Okay.
And that's something that BMX gave me.
It was the
100%. First two steps.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So when you go home and you got your first place trophy, what do? You say, I want to go back next week, or was it a?
Being 8 years old, I don't remember too much about like what was the next step. I think really it was just all about exploring other tracks.
Okay.
At that point, so we had Snow, we had Moffett Field, Orion Park, and then we also had Livermore, and then of course you had the double pointers, and it was all about going to the double pointers, and
Was UBR around back then? Did you do any UBR?
I didn't do any UBR. Everything was ABA.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I don't even recall doing NBL probably until maybe 10 years old. Maybe 1985 was maybe my first NBL race. Maybe in the middle of California somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, like
Fresno.
Yeah. What's
Sanger.
Saugus or some weird. They had
Okay.
some weird, like in those onion fields. They had all those NBL races.
That's more Southern California, yeah, huh? Yeah. Kind
Well,
of in the
to
middle.
me, being an LA guy, it seems to be in the middle or northern middle. However you break up the state. But so, when did you first get in like a sponsorship? Did you get a bike shop team?
Yeah, my first sponsorship was a bike shop out of San Ramon, California, called Standard Cycle.
Okay.
Yep. And then from there, it was like, I just remember one time, I don't know what I was, 9, 10. I think I was 10 years old, and I doubled at the Halloween double pointer race, right? It was a Halloween double pointer, and I doubled. I won 9-10 Open and 10 Expert or something like that, and I still didn't have a sponsor. And I remember after the races, there was a female team manager and a male team manager, two separate teams, courting my father, and they're trying to corner him and trying to sequester him to convince me to ride for their team.
Okay.
And I remember that being a big deal, and one of them was actually a decent national, like a regional national team, and the other one was a bike shop team. But the bike shop team had my local heroes on that team, so naturally I wanted to go to that team.
And who were those local heroes?
There was a guy named Tony Orlando, and he ended up writing for Boss for a quick minute.
It sounds familiar. Not as a singer, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Was Dawn around back then?
17 and over. He was a 17 and over guy. He was on the team, and he was a guy that he pretty much took me to all the practices from Stockton, Orion Parks, and all.
Dude, you had so many good tracks around your house.
We had a lot of good tracks.
Roseville's more.
Roseville's more Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly.
But Stockton was certainly within 45-minute reach of being in the East Bay. East Bay, I would say we're very much central because we could go to Orion Park or Santa Clara, and we could go to Napa. Napa wasn't too far, so we can pretty much go. We can go any direction and be within a track within 45 minutes.
How fast did you turn expert? You said you were expert at this time. How fast did you? You won your first race for Christ's sake.
I turned pretty quick.
Okay.
Pretty quickly, yeah. Just like turning pro, I turned double A pro rather. I turned double A pro within 2.5 weekends. Yeah,
I spent a whole lifetime there, but that's not important right now.
A pro for life, baby.
A pro for life.
I just remember Billy Griggs was like, when I first turned A pro, he was like, he said, Greg, you get the hell out of that class. That shit will make you slower.
No.
That's exactly what Billy said. Get out of that class. That shit will make you slower.
We got a guy, Mike Miranda, watching. I don't know if anyone ever heard of Hollywood Mike.
Hollywood Mike, what's going on?
Thanks so much for watching. I love you. So there's something about there's this whole philosophy of single A that I have, and I've talked to people about it, and it's if you're going to race amateur and race you guys, or Kenny May and Cullinan and Carter and King, why not just go single A, make money? Why the hell would you put yourself in Pavlovsky in this mix of these guys? So was single A faster? Absolutely not. But why get killed by you guys? You just go make some money and hang out and die there if you want to, or because there's people that would go straight through, like Mikey and you went straight through, but there's also guys that hung out there just to make a living.
It's interesting. I'm kind of a historian, and I remember when Danny Nelson turned pro, he was up against Jason Richardson, Matt Hayden. I want to say Todd Blazer was there. There was an A pro race from the U.S. Nationals, and it was stacked. So something like that, I would say if you're A pro and you were in there with some heavy-handed, high-end amateurs that are also moving through the ranks with you, I don't think there's a need to rush it. But when I turned, there just wasn't a whole lot of talent. I mean, no disrespect, but there just wasn't a whole lot of talent when I turned A pro. Again, no disrespect, but I mean, my competition was two guys that were good at being kings of dirt. One became a freestyle guy, and another one's just a check me out guy, really good, doing backflips over pro sections. These guys were great. They were awesome bike handlers by all means. They were better than me, but by no means were they serious about getting the whole shot and trying to snap Gary Ellis and Charles Townsend.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So you get on the bike shop. Did you chose your hero's bike shop, or did you choose the other one?
Oh yeah, so I went. At an early age, I went with standard. It's called standard. It's called STD. I don't really like calling it this is before STD sort of thing, but the jury said STD.
No. Do you still have one?
But no, I don't.
Oh, I would love to get.
Yeah, I still don't have an STD now. But the bike shop was called Standard Cycle, and I remember getting my first. I got a GT. I remember. We were still buying our bikes, so I remember buying a GT. It had the Nora Cup sticker on there.
Nice.
It had an American bottom bracket, and I was 9 years old riding American bottom bracket.
And how funny you would eventually ride for them later on in your life. That's so cool. I love that stuff.
A long time.
Because you were probably this is the greatest bike I've ever, and then not knowing you'd be paid to ride for them.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up being a really big bike. But I remember my first real race bike actually was, it was two of them. It was a Diamondback Harry Larry Turbo Light.
Oh, shit.
So I had a European bottom bracket, really small. I mean, really tailored for an 8-year-old, 9-year-old size kid.
You could retire off of that right now if you still had it.
Yeah, probably. But certainly the Turbo. The Turbo Light was awesome. And then of course so then I moved on to a regional team called Samco, and they were based out of Hayward, and they had ties with Boss. And my next bike was a free agent. It was a free agent junior.
Wow.
And I was the first person in Northern California that had a free agent junior. And
It's that SoCal bike. You got to keep that shit out of NorCal.
It was a SoCal bike, but it's crazy. That was, free agent was ahead of their time because the geometry for anything they made was a template, even I would say, for today.
Agreed.
And I would say that like Carlo. So then my next sponsor was Boss. That was 1985. I got on Boss.
Okay.
And
Greg Straney's watching. Greg, I love you. Thanks for joining us.
yeah. So Boss was. It was cool. So when I got on Boss, they were really big on making a lot of standard pro size stuff. For like Ronnie Anderson, Frank Post, Cecil Johns, Terry Jeanette. They were still making full size big cranks, big handlebars. And when I came on, it was like, well, they made all my bikes custom. Carlo did, because they weren't producing them for retail. There wasn't a demand.
Right.
There wasn't a demand until free agent, I would say, broke that mold and came out with the junior bike.
Did you have any input on those bosses as far as geometry and handling and stuff?
I really didn't. No. I mean, I remember having on Boss. I had the first Mini Cruiser, and I was the first one to have Mini Cruiser handlebars. The Boss Mini Cruiser handlebars were literally about 4 inches. They were like 2 to 3 inches tall. They were really, really low profile, and so I was able to be one of the first. As a little kid, I didn't really think anything of it, but today it's like, oh gosh, I wish I would have had that bike.
And driving down here, and I had this complete not idea, but I have so many opinions and thoughts of your Boss years, because formidable, made you who you are today, absolutely right. And the time I spent with Cecil, which was a lot on the East Coast, he changed the way I thought about things. And I only spent minimal time with him, right? We used to handwrite letters to each other. I still have them, actually.
Wow.
And he would always tell me, you're a Jersey guy, man. You got to be tough. Like he wouldn't accept that I lived in LA, right? That was his whole shtick. But I can see the way you are today. There's Cecil in there for sure.
Yeah.
And I guarantee, with as successful as you are in real estate, I guarantee there's Cecil in there. And I couldn't wait to get to this point in the interview to ask you, what did Cecil teach you?
Yeah, so much. I think Cecil was just all about self-empowerment, right? When you see someone like Cecil, it was like, oh, there's someone that's very confident in the way he looks, the way he talks, the way he presents himself, the way he gives compliments to other people, right? And the way that he leads. There's so many awesome characteristics about Cecil. And Cecil was a guy that I would say, he came from the East Coast, came to the
Jersey
West
guy,
Coast.
believe it or not.
Yeah, from Jersey. Cecil Johns here. We're talking about Cecil Johns, one of my mentors. Cecil was a guy that, he worked really hard, and it was all about, hey, however he presented himself, he actually worked at it. So whether it was, his intelligence, his physical, his emotional, his mental, right, his ability to lead, it was always something that he was always cognizant of, and he was always working on it. And one of the things that Cecil taught me as a person was, hey, you don't want to give other people a reason to hate you, so to speak, or to talk bad about you. A couple times I failed, like I threw my bike at Neil Wood, whatever, but that's a whole other story.
We got time. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, Cecil Johns, I mean, he is the epitome and godfather of the NCB movement, the NorCal Boys movement, for sure. Like he was the glue, and obviously he had the sponsorship with Boss, and I would say, as an amateur, this is something I've been wanting to tell people that I don't think a lot of people understand about myself, John, was I wasn't that great of an amateur at all. I mean, I was so much a better pro than I was an amateur, and it's crazy looking back in the history of BMX. So many great amateurs who actually kind of failed at pro, right? They didn't really live up to their name as an amateur and pro. I mean, I can think of tons of awesome, superstars. And, one of the things as an amateur, I was just soft. and Cecil was just always hard on my ass, and it was hard for him to get through to me. But by the time I became older, around 17, 18, it clicked.
Wow.
It clicked. It was like, okay, I have to work for being fast. There's nothing given to me in life, and that was the biggest lesson that I learned from Cecil Johns, was that I need to be grateful for everything, for every opportunity that comes my way, right? And so that was the biggest lesson that I've learned from Cecil. I don't know if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah,
because I know
it.
he influences your daily today. I can
Yeah,
see
absolutely.
It. So I just want to know what he taught.
Yeah, I mean, he was a hero of mine at the raw age of 13 to 14, all the way up, and then when I turned pro, he invited me to live with him. So I lived with Cecil. I lived with Cecil my first 4 years as a pro.
Amazing.
In which, you know, I would say those were amazing years as a pro.
Wow.
You know, it was just, there was no BS. We had no television. I pretty much, you know, we didn't do a whole lot of nothing except for literally eat, sleep, rest, BMX, right, and watch film. We love watching film.
That's amazing.
And so.
And you had all your number plate quotes on the back, right? Remember?
Yeah.
That's some good.
Yeah.
Give me a couple Cecil quotes that'll trigger some people into remembering.
Cecil. Cecil was all about, you know,
the Penguins.
He was all about fuck LA, you know. One of the laughable things that Cecil would do. So when I moved in with Cecil, I was already riding for an LA sponsor, right? I was riding for Auburn. So, but it was one of those things where it was like, it was weird. It was like, I think there was a part that he reveled that I was getting LA sponsorship money because he knew, he's like, hey, Northern California, there's no sponsors that are going to pay consistently the way GT does. GT has the biggest budget. They got the best. They got the best BMX blueprint going, right? Their hands are on everything. They have right way distribution. They got Force. They got, you know, GT plus 3 I can't even talk. Subsidiaries. Excuse me. Powerlight, Auburn, Robinson, and then they had pros, and then they also have their own in-house television production, right? They had everything. They had the budget. They had the big sponsors, and I think Cecil reveled that I was involved in that, right? Because he knew it was a lifeline. Because if I didn't have that, then I probably wouldn't exist. Yeah. Honestly, as a pro, I'd probably be doing something else, doing manual labor. Who knows what the heck I would be doing if it wasn't for the opportunity to have a sponsor such as GT. But it was laughable. So one of the funny things that Cecil would do is when I would get packages from Right Way, which was GT's distribution.
I was an employee for a while.
So I remember, like, Pete Delusky, he would call me and he would say, hey, what do you need? I said, oh, I need some Mohawk hubs, I need some new bars, I need a 43, a 44, 45, I need new forks. So I bent my forks, you know. These forks came from Taiwan, and it was laughable. So there would be a knock at the door. Oh, starting to knock over the camera here. There would be a knock at the door, John, and it was UPS. And Cecil, Cecil would open the door, and he would look down. He would see that the package would say,
"Honey,
GT." Let me get a water.
Sure.
He would look at the package and say, "Oh, it says GT on the package." He would walk away from the UPS guy, turn his back on the UPS guy, and said, "Primo," because that was my nickname at the time. Primo, it still is actually, but even more predominantly then. "Primo, your Taiwan shit is here."
Okay.
So that was it was just laughable.
Because he's getting handmade stuff right out of the factory.
Yeah, I mean, they're making American-made stuff. You know, they're making everything in house. GT actually made a lot. They made all their high-end frames. All their Pro Series stuff was American-made. Handlebars were American-made, but pretty much everything else, you know, from time to time they would. I think in the beginning, like they would outsource like things like stems and hubs and gears. That stuff was all milled in the USA. But for the most part, it was just kind of a clown because it was just all about associating anything SoCal with Taiwan. Right?
Oh, okay.
Right. It was just kind of like, you know, it's just kind of a blanket. It was just kind of like a blanket, you know, if you will, a kind of a derogatory thing to associate LA with. Everything from LA is made from Taiwan.
He was so hardcore.
He was so hard. He was really hardcore like that. So, but yeah, that was the funner times of Cecil, and obviously he was a phenomenal. No matter what, rain, sleet or snow, sickness, he's showing up to the gym Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wow.
Every night. So I go to the gym with him at least 3 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. And that taught me a lot of discipline. That taught me a lot of heart. That gave me a lot of drive. That gave me a lot of reason to actually go out and represent what I built physically, emotionally, and mentally on the pro scene.
Nice.
Yeah.
It gave you purpose, right? Like.
Yeah, I would say it was just purpose was all about being grateful and honored in the moment of the opportunities that we had.
Amazing. So how long were you on Boss for?
I was on Boss for, pretty much 1987 to 92.
Wow.
So a long time, yeah. What was that, 10 years?
Yes.
Yeah, even there was a stint in my amateur career, and I'm sure every amateur goes through this, where they take a break or two, they take a season off or two, and I took a season off. When I was 14 and 15, I didn't race a whole lot. Mm-hmm. But I always had a home at Boss when I came back.
So what happens when you get the Auburn? I mean, you get the Auburn, right? What is Cecil must, like we had said, he must have been up you, but you have to do your thing. It was a good thing. How did you get approached by Auburn?
So the Auburn thing was miraculous. Claude Von Trotha was running the Auburn program, and I think what they were doing at the time, I think they had maybe 3 or 4 amateurs. Jason Richardson was an A pro on that team. Teamed up with Todd Corbett, but then Claude had his son Nigel. I think Jamie Lilly was on there. A kid named Chris Green. They had just enough body count to have a team sheet, but they didn't have depth in terms of, like, they were putting Jason and Todd Corbett on the team sheet, but they wanted to have 4 or 5, 6 pure amateurs. And so it was funny. I think I was at a race in U.S. Nationals, like Lemoore or Bakersfield, one of those races, and Claude came up to me and I said, "Hey, Claude, how's it going?" Claude, I have rapport with a lot of people from LA, so Claude was really cool. And Claude come up to me and he'd be like, "Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?" I say, "How's it going?" He said, "Oh, nothing much, man. Something about I need a 19 and over expert. I need another amateur." Like, you would throw this hint at me, but it was very indirect, and I kind of brushed it off. Like, what's he talking about? Like, is he hitting on me to race for him?
Yeah.
It was like, hey, I ride for Boss, and I know nothing else, and this is a hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
I'm going to die on in a Boss jersey, and so then he realized he didn't really resonate with me, and so what he did was he went and sequestered Jason Richardson. And then Jason and Claude came up to me the same weekend. I want to say probably the second day on Sunday. And they came up to me and said, "Hey, Greg, we're serious. We would like for you to ride for Auburn." And I was like, "Oh God!" I remember the first thing I was thinking was, "Oh wow, how am I going to break this news to like someone like Cecil or Jesse Guyman?" Because Carlo was out of the mix at that time. He was Carlo had moved to Oregon, and I think he had to take a break from the BMX scene. And at that point, Cecil and Jesse Guyman were running Boss out of Livermore. And so I remember thinking about it. I remember bringing it up to Jesse, and Jesse's like, don't do it. But I was thinking, well, you know what? This would be I remember talking to someone like Eric Carter.
Right.
And Eric Carter's like, hey, it would be a great opportunity for you to ride for Auburn, because they're owned by GT, and GT makes all their stuff. They make their pedals. And I remember thinking about, like, oh wow, they make their pedals? Like, oh, I want to ride some GT pedals.
So the pedals means the deal.
It was so weird, just like, thinking like an 18, 19.
Whoever committed to a factory ride over a set of pedals, well, you did. So that's awesome.
But you know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh wow, like Boss was like always hurting, and it's just kind of like the bad news bears. I mean, absolutely, I love Boss, and it hardened me up and it made me appreciate even more so with GT, right? So. But that was it. I remember talking to Jesse, and he says, "Well, do what you got to do." And I was just thinking, like, you know what? Like, I'm either doing this or I'm going to work for my girlfriend's father doing landscape and labor, and this is depressing.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to continue the dream out of high school and continuously do fun stuff. So I immediately saw the daylight in terms of the prudent decision to move on from Boss and to go with a company that had a legit going concern of a business in GT.
That's a good idea. What'd you think of the bike? I used to put those together, by the way.
The Auburns were cool. The first iteration was really nice because the bottom bracket was really low. If you had 185 cranks, you were hitting. You couldn't pedal over jumps because the bottom bracket was like 11. It was like 11 and a quarter. It was super slammed, right? And but I remember like watching again. I was going back referencing Jason Richardson race Matt Hayden and Danny Nelson at the U.S. Nationals as an A pro. He was actually he was the fastest because of that bike.
Wow.
The Auburn had a super low bottom bracket, and it just allowed you to accelerate.
So was that the aluminum rear end or with the chrome?
That was aluminum rear end, yeah. And then I think Todd Corbett campaigned to, because I think he liked riding 185 cranks. I think when you turned AA pro, you rode 185s with a 45/16 everywhere. That was your gearing configuration by de facto, right? So I think Todd Corbett talked to GT about the idea of changing the geometry and raising the bottom bracket, and then they raised it up like an inch. In my opinion, like I have one today, and it's still too high.
Wow.
Right? They went from too low to too high.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
So and do you put that one in the show? Because you have some, your show bikes are your Robinsons, right?
Yes, I have a couple Auburns, a Robinson, and a couple of GTs.
That you put in the show.
That I put in the show, yeah.
Because when I was thinking about racing one of the vintage races, you had started putting training stuff up, and I'm like, oh man, Greg's serious. He's bringing this to another level, and I like this. Like you're putting up your training, but then you're like, I'm only joking. I'm going to do the bike show instead. Because I was like, look at his numbers, man. I got to pull one out of my ass here. So you inspired me to come back to vintage. You really did it, which is interesting. Because I'm like, if vintage is going to get this technical with training, I'm in. Because I'm all about that shit.
Right.
So we talked about that periodization and all that shit. So
Yeah,
I was excited. You inspired me to come back.
Yeah, right.
And then I went from vintage to modern. How that happened, I have no idea. But how's Auburn going? When you went with Auburn, how was it?
Yeah, Auburn was great, man. They opened up the floodgates in terms of full support. The biggest thing for me was actually getting an invite to move in with Claude in Anaheim.
Oh, wow.
So when I moved down to Anaheim with Claude, with the Von Trothas, both Nigel and Claude and his family, that gave me, and I drove my truck down there, and they gave me a bedroom, and I became an Orange Y local, and I also became a Sheep Hills local. And I would
Didn't have a gate leaving NorCal. You weren't allowed to leave.
Yeah,
Didn't have any kind of
So I quote unquote sold out and moved to LA, but I did it. It was like, well, this is where the scene is at. Let's give it a go and see how it can help me. And obviously, it gave me tremendous bike handling skills because I was not. I mean, I was stiffer than Todd Steen. And Todd Steen,
sure.
His nickname was Stiffy.
Sure.
And so, but getting into the environment of riding with guys like Christoph Levesque, the Foster brothers, I would see Chris Muller out there.
Well, Orange Y did produce a couple of champions.
Yeah, Orange Y, doing gates on Orange Y with pretty much everybody, right? Greg Hill, Billy Griggs, and Barry Nilsson, and Chad Roberts, and but I remember even guys like
Zaynao and Luna would crush people.
Yeah.
And they're like 15. Mike Luna pulled me down a straightaway at Orange. He was 15. I go, it's time. I'm done. I got to be done after this. It kind of killed me.
Yeah, and even like the trail scene, like Sean Duncan and Jason German, all those guys really embraced me, and inspired me to do stuff like jumping the cliff jump at Dover.
I love that.
Right? Like I remember I had to do it once, and I remember how it was like, like if I ever wanted, I just remember them yelling at me to go and doing it, and thinking to myself, well, if I'm going to be a good racer, then I need to do this.
Wow.
Didn't need to do it, but I remember this. That's the environment, right? That's the unconscious development of the racer. You're only as good as, it's so cliche, you're only as good as the racers and the environment that you're in. Mm-hmm. And so I think being exposed to pretty much every day, Orange, Cole Canyon, going to Cole Canyon.
Love that first straight.
You know, and seeing Mike Redmond and seeing Pistol Pete, and you know, just being in that environment, being reminded of greatness. Honestly, you know, not that I didn't have greatness in Northern California, but certainly there was a lot of people that were not from LA that were using the Southern California lifestyle as a lifeline to develop and to live their dream.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so
the
for me,
POW house, that's what all
the POW house, you know, which was so gross. Oh,
Come on.
I hate going into the bathroom at the POW house.
Oh, you don't like fungus and fucking mold?
That was terrible.
Yeah,
hair everywhere.
Yeah, I think eventually the shower just caved into itself. There was so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like you're saying, that like the Foster brothers came out and Todd Lyons came out, Dave Clammer came out, and then we just all, that was it. Just eat. Same thing you had with Cecil.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would just eat, sleep.
I remember even like hanging out with like Matt Hayden and a guy named Brent Beato. His name was Bige. Just like doing sprints in a parking lot with these guys randomly, and like, you know, and you know, just middle of nowhere, Laverne, you know, just like what
I just did my lunch with legends with Matt and Laverne. It was beautiful
yeah,
out there.
Yeah.
So then, how,
Talk to me the transition from Auburn to what was next.
Yeah, I think from there it was just, you know, when I got into Auburn, I was an amateur, and Justin Green was the pro.
that's crazy to think he was just a little kid, right?
Yeah, Justin Green are the same age. I raced Justin pretty much all my life. And in fact, I want to put it on record right now that, you know, when I was an amateur, again, I was an absolute terrible amateur. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like I got motoed. I just wasn't a superstar guy, you know, like, because the superstars that were in my class were guys like Jeff Schofield, Little Mr. Awesome, Chicken George Sievers, Shelby James, Justin Green. You know, when you got those four guys, I mean, Shelby James was a guy that I never beat, ever.
I don't think anybody did.
Yeah, I think ever. I've never, that was the only guy probably in my whole career I've never raced in front of. But guys like Chicken George, Justin Green, Brad Moore, he rode for Hutch.
Brad Moore.
Marty Chrisman, who was awesome, right racing free agent, who I had a tough time with. And of course, Danny Nelson. I mean, there was probably 6 guys I just named right there that they were in the magazines all the time. They had the premier sponsors. I had the boss sponsorship, so, you know, I was kind of like B team, if you will, you know, trying to make it happen. But I pretty much lived in the shadows of those guys. Of course, my last name being Romero, I didn't really, you know, when I turned pro, I would say the older guys from that era that know about racing in the 80s, they associate me with Brent Romero because they didn't pay attention to my, you know, no fault of their own, but in the 90s, in the mid-school era when I was racing pro, a lot of those guys that knew of Brent Romero, they moved on.
Yeah.
But when they circle back and look at magazines, they say, oh yeah, you're Brent Romero.
Oh,
And,
no way.
and so I always get mixed up with Brent Romero, but Brent had the awesome amateur career. Certainly he was the #1 amateur. I never raced Brent, but we had the same last name. And, you know, he didn't turn pro. So, again, you know, what I'm trying to say is I didn't have a great amateur career. And, you know, Justin Green was a guy that I always placed second behind at most nationals. Was one of my teammates who was a pro on Auburn. And for some reason, in the middle of the season, Greg Hill picked him up. I think Greg Hill took over the Redline program in 1994, and he picked up Justin Green, swooped Justin Green out from underneath his feet, and that gave me an opportunity to turn pro for Auburn.
That's great.
Because at that point, it was like, well, hey, you know, like my last year as an amateur, I was going so darn fast. I was beating Charles Townsend consistently as an amateur at the local track. You know, like I remember jumping. I was sneaking to pro practice, and I would run neck and neck with, you know, with all the top pros. So when Justin Green left Redline, that pretty much opened the opportunity to turn pro and continuously keep that Auburn ride. And at that point, for some reason, Auburn got rid of the amateur team. I was the last guy on Auburn. I turned pro, and yeah, the rest was history.
You said you said in a couple of weekends you turned AA. Is that right?
Turned AA, yes.
In a couple of weekends. That's insane.
2.5 weekends.
Jesus.
So I remember going to Reno, I don't know. The next one was probably like somewhere Arkansas, and then the next race was a race in Michigan. It was Detroit. I remember winning 8 Pro on Saturday, and then waking up Sunday morning having to get in the gate with Gary Ellis in AA Pro.
How did you do? Because I'm
That
very
one I
interested.
got motoed. I saw the lights were too bright.
Yeah.
The lights were too bright. But my second weekend ever of AA Pro, I remember going to Texas, and I remember getting good gates all weekend, including practice. I was hole shotting practice. Like, I won practice.
Nice.
And I remember getting 2/3. My first AA Pro weekend, I got 2/3.
Because I know, Mikey made the switch and like was phenomenal. Like I've said this a lot, and I'm almost positive. Like he won single A on a Saturday and won double A on a Sunday. Like that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's why I always asked how you did.
Yeah,
because
that's
superstar
fair.
shit.
Yeah, that's some fairy tale stuff. That doesn't really it doesn't really happen that way. But hey, you never know.
Yeah, but you got third. I mean,
the following weekend, yeah. Like I said, I think for the most part, I think I fought with the unconscious programming that I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
that's some
I think,
Carl Jung shadow shit. Right
yeah,
there.
exactly. I suffered from not being good enough pretty much my whole entire amateur career. So when I turned pro, it was all about proving myself.
What do you think was your biggest confidence booster to say I'm able to now be a superstar? What do you think it was? Do you have a defining moment where you were like, you're keeping up with Charles, that's enough to give you confidence, right?
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you're like, I'm here, I now have to do this?
Yeah, I think really it's just all about like guys like Big E, someone like Mike Redman. I remember winning my first AA Pro race, and I think Mike Redman, the night before, he was like, "You could win this," and hearing it from a guy like Mike Redman was like everything that any rider would ever need. Any kind of pep talk from Mike Redman would go a long ways because. You took his compliments and his advice to heart, right? Transform and help people's riding careers, such as Pistol Pete. I've seen him do it with so many riders. Pistol Pete, Darren Mitchell, Ricky Gilbert. Just to name a few guys. But I remember having a conversation with him and going out and winning it the next day, winning AA Pro at the World Cup. That's when I realized it was like, okay, it's on.
Cecil's mentoring, right, which is amazing. I wish he was still around. I'd still talk to him. And then you have Mike compliment, this one comment. That's it. Everything now. Preparation met opportunity at that point.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, so do you remember what did it feel like when you won your first AA overall?
It was pretty surreal.
That's amazing.
One of the things I do remember is Claude Von Trotha was at the finish line. He gave me a big old hug, and I remember Greg Hill was one of the first guys that congratulated me because he was actually in the main event.
Wow. And he doesn't give out those.
Yeah,
a couple times.
I think Greg was going through a phase where it was like he was like 8th inning of his career. He was a team manager, he was a coach, and he was racing AA Pro, so he had a lot of stuff going on all at once. And I remember him telling me this recently. He goes, I remember being in the main event when you won, and he said, hey, this is cool. Here's this young kid who's coming up, and here's someone else that we have to worry about, kind of thing. But I think he was kind of like, he recognized game. He was very sincere, and I think you're right. I think it takes a lot to get Greg Hill's approval.
Sure, because I know a couple people that were like, I think Mike Miranda has a great story where Mike beat him, turns around and says, do you respect me? And Greg goes, no. I don't yet. And you haven't proved yet. I don't yet. So, to hear that.
That's great. You don't want to give someone like that an opportunity to tell you no.
And Mike, if you're still watching, I remember you telling me that story. Or you told it on Dirty
Jason Chang's watching.
Jason Chang.
How's the lighting in here?
It's amazing.
Okay, good.
Bump it up in post.
I still got another sandwich to eat.
So let's move to the whole Robinson thing, because I think that was some of your best years, yeah?
I would say so.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would say that most people recognize me or remember me in the Robinson gear. And I would say because, for one, I spent most of my winning in a Robinson jersey, But I remember getting sequestered by Rich Long. in 1996, and Rich Long is this guy of very little words to say, right?
He said you're fired a couple times to me.
Did he?
Yeah.
He fired you?
Yeah, everybody knows the story. I'll tell you when we're done. For another time.
Oh man, that's
yeah,
great.
no, he did. You're fired. He actually said you're fired.
Wow.
But anyway,
Donald Trump style. You're fired.
when you run a truck into you go to get gas and you realize that the canopy of the gas station is lower than the truck itself, it's caused a problem, and that's what I did.
Oh, what like one of the GT box trucks?
Of course. I didn't realize that they were much taller than the canopy
Yeah,
of the gas
yeah,
station. Yeah.
That's how I got fired. That's great. It's a pretty famous story. But anyway, I can remember. I do picture you as boss, because that's what I made. But like the Robinson thing, for sure. I remember. How do you go from
within the company? How do you move from one to the other?
It's simple. They wanted to dissolve. They wanted to dissolve Auburn. I guess Auburn just wasn't selling, right? They wanted to simplify things. So naturally, they just moved me over to Robinson. I remember Rich Long, pulling me aside at the January Reno race, the opening race of 1996. He says, "Hey, Greg, we're going to go ahead and dissolve Auburn as a team. I think that we're going to continuously sell out any remaining stock, right? Like bikes that were coming in from Taiwan, the completes, and any other American-made, handlebars and frame sets that they were, that they still had in right way in
Wish you would
distribution."
have told me, I would have bought some.
I know.
That'd be
So Rich was like, "Hey, we're gonna just move you over to Robinson," and I remember asking him like, "Well, what about Charles?" Because Charles Townsend was on Robinson. Like that was my first thing. I was saying, "Well, what about Charles?" He said, "Well, you guys are gonna be on the team together." I said, "Okay, cool." Don't know how Charles liked it. I don't think he liked it, but he had to deal with it. And so that was it. I got onto Robinson, and I remember my first. Gosh, I would say my first half a year on Robinson, I just struggled.
no way.
I just struggled. I didn't like, the bike was like the same geometry, but it was a full chromoly bike. And the Auburn was pretty cool because it was half chromoly, but the rear end was aluminum, so it was kind of light and it was really responsive, and I really liked the Auburn bike. But it wasn't until I got the the Robinson aluminum, which came out in the summer of '96, right? Which was the Pro Team, and it had the Canny guide for the brakes, and that's a super rare bike if you can find one. Actually, there's not many of them.
And you don't have it.
I have one.
Oh shit.
I got one. And that's the show bike.
Okay, here comes all the comments. Sell it to me. No.
Take a bite. Oh, okay. I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's so you're who else is on Robinson at this point?
Robinson had a whole team.
Wow. So you, Charles, and
Robinson had Alexis Vergara.
oh my God, I remember.
Alexis Vergara. I want to say Larry Mearsh, but I think Larry Mearsh already left by then. I don't know. Stephen Liraldi, Chad Hernandez, Alexis Vergara, Cyril Wilson, and Larry Canberra.
Larry Canberra.
Larry Canberra.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember Larry.
Yeah. That was Robinson.
Were you guys winning team sheets? Or?
I don't remember. I was racing pro, so I didn't really
Oh, yeah.
pay attention to the amateur stuff. But I think they were doing okay. Yeah. And GT and Robinson, those amateur teams, they were very interchangeable.
Yeah.
They would swap out jerseys like season to season they would swap people out. But yeah, that was Robinson was a great run. That was from '96 to '99. So was that 3 years, 4 seasons?
Yeah.
4 seasons in the Robinson stuff, and Robinson was great. It was great. At some point, they dissolved the amateur team. Charles was not re-signed in '99, and I was on Robinson by myself in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah, and And then they had to talk again. They were like, "Hey, Greg, we're dissolving Robinson. We're going to put you on GT for 2000." So,
and this was shocking. We had a chat. I was like, I don't really remember, and you're like, well, it was an okay season. So
yeah, I mean, GT, I was on there for one season. Actually, it was a great season. I finished number 2 pro, but I won a shit ton of races in a GT uniform for that 1 year. And then after that, it all went downhill because GT. I think they claimed bankruptcy, and then they were picked up by an ownership group that also owned Schwinn.
okay,
Yeah, so at that point they started to dissolve a lot.
Wow.
I think they dissolved the amateur team in 2001. But that was it. That was pretty much, I would say, that span of being under the GT umbrella of Auburn, Robinson GT between 1994 and 2000, in the year 2000 season is probably a great reason why I'm being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
yeah.
You know, it was those
How's that hit you mentally?
formidable years. What's that?
No, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame was a
That's
trip.
insane.
I would say it's really weird. I mean, it took 7. Excuse me. It took 7 tries to get in there, and I'll be honest with you, the first time I was actually a nominee, I was like, I'm not really worthy of a nomination. I think it was just because of the magnitude of names that were on there at the time, you know. But I think it's weird. Like, I think finally this year, after being on the ballot consistently year after year, always placing in the top 3, right? Not placing first, but always being second or third. I think I asked myself, it's like, hey man, like, are you okay with being in the Hall of Fame? And I was like, you know what? I'm totally cool with it. Yeah, if I get nominated, I'm totally cool with being in the Hall of Fame. And I would say years prior there was an incongruency.
Sure.
John, it was like, I don't, you know, Greg Romero in the Hall of Fame, that doesn't really resonate. That doesn't make sense. But I would say recently it's beginning to make more sense.
Okay.
And I would say just kind of putting that energy out there, it kind of manifested itself, you know.
Cool.
So
Cool. It's an interesting thing because you don't ever start. You start for the love of riding, right?
Yeah.
And then you say I'm pretty good, and then you start to win nationals. Then you turn pro, you win nationals. Like I'm pretty badass. Hall of Fame is like holy. That's a whole other.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets in, right? Like
it's pretty tough.
It's tough.
You know, like I have a total respect of the history of the Hall of Fame, and obviously I have an utmost respect for anybody that I've been up against, you know, in being nominated into the Hall of Fame. Being a nominee of the Hall of Fame is an acknowledgement in itself, you know. But looking at the names that are still on there, and looking at the names, like I'm really glad, like this whole racer category, it really needs to kind of open up. It really needs to be old school racer. An old school racer needs to be prior to like 1980, honestly. There needs to be racer. Racer needs to be like more like 80s, and then you got mid school, right? I really think there needs to be at least 3 categories of racer. Mid school needs to be in itself its own category, because when you have mid school pros like Matt Hayden going up against Maris Strombergs or Bubba Harris, that makes no sense. Like they didn't even compete in the same era.
that makes sense.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I feel like there needs to be another category, because now all of a sudden you got guys like, now you have the Olympic era guys coming in. Guys like Sam Willoughby, who's been removed from BMX racing since 2016, since his accident. You know, he had a career-ending accident, if people don't know. But geez, man, it's been 9 years since you've raced, and I think you have to be removed from the pro class for at least 5 years to be eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That being said, you have someone like Connor Fields. I believe it's getting pretty darn close. I think he's 5 years removed now. I think 20, because it was 2021 was his last race at the Olympics. When he had a career-ending crash as well. Tokyo 21 in Olympics. So it's, you know,
Coming up on.
he's coming up on 5 years.
Yeah.
2026 will be 5 years. He'll be eligible for a Hall of Fame nod next year. So then you got guys like, you know, Dale Holmes, Matt Hayden, Todd Corbett, Todd Slavic's in there. I feel like he's an 80s guy. He's a guy that's kind of like lost in translation. Jamie Staff, Tomas Allier. So many great racers have done so many wonderful things, and are tremendous standouts in the sport, especially in the pro class, that are still on the board.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they got to go up against guys like Sam Willoughby, Connor Fields, and then there's still leftover guys that, that I can think of, guys like Warwick Stevenson.
Wow.
Warwick Stevenson is a guy that's totally worthy of a Hall of Fame nomination. He should be in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, it's a blessing. I'm super grateful, honestly, and I'm also grateful to get out of that list. Like, just get out, just move on.
Yeah.
And trust me, like I don't feel like it's more of an honor. It's not something that, and it's obviously a privilege, but it's not something that like, oh, I deserve to be in there. Like I'm not, I was never that guy that campaigned myself to be in there. But to be on the nomination list 7 years in a row, after a while, it gets into your head like, oh gosh, here's a Hall of Fame, voting process all over again. I gotta go through this whole thing. I'm probably gonna finish second or third.
It's wearing, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a tease, but yeah, it was great, and I knew before the announcement, which was pretty cool. I knew, like, they announced it on a Wednesday, and the guys from the Hall of Fame committee called me up on a Monday to let me know what was going on. So I had to keep my mouth shut for like 48 hours. The only person I told was my significant other, Nicole, and then my mom. And I told my mom, don't post anything on the internet.
Nice. But she wanted to because it's your son, right?
Yeah.
She drove you to that race.
Yeah.
So what happens?
Paulie Doug said cowboy. I wonder, there's a bunch of comments in there. Can you scroll through the comments?
Sure can. Look at that. I read every single one of them too.
NorCal Pool, Brian Patterson. Yeah,
Brian Patterson.
Brian Patterson gave me his number plate at a local Friday night race in Sonoma when I was 10 years old. Brian Patterson was the #1 pro in 1984, and somehow my team manager for Standard Cycle, STD, convinced Brian Patterson to give me his number plate after the race. I wish I kept it. I don't know what to do with it.
Wow, that's huge.
Sorry, Brian.
My mom's favorite pros, Brian Patterson and Mike Moran. She said they're just really nice people. That's what my mom said.
That's it,
She didn't care if they won or not. She wanted to know that I was cool with them, and maybe they gave me a jersey or a grips or something. My mom that's her two favorites.
It's funny, man. People don't really, they would rather like you for being nice rather than winning races.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I wish, honestly, that was something that someone told me.
Nice.
I would have been a lot nicer. I was just thinking, oh man, I just gotta win. I gotta, it was stressful for me racing pro, man. Like, honestly, it was hard work. Having to make the main and you only being as good as your last race. That's a double-edged sword. It's good, but it forces you to be really good. But at the same time, it can also kill you,
and I talked to Dale Holmes, and then you're sitting in the rental car with Gary Ellis on one side and Greg Hill on the other, and you're like, then maybe they got 1 and 2 that weekend, and you're like, what am I? You got to feel like you're giving.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. So at what point are you done? At what point do you go, hey, I'm done racing?
Honestly, that was around 2005. I was already looking for an exit plan of moving on from racing professionally and wanting to get into coaching.
Oh, cool.
I knew the Olympics was coming around the corner, and I already had a rapport with guys that wanted to race in the Olympics, and they were actually some of my own personal competitors. Guys like Kyle Bennett, Randy Stumphauser, Mike Day. I had a lot of rapport with Mike Day, and Mike Day was an NBL #1 pro, won a lot of races, but he was also a specialty rider, right? He was a, how could you say it? Mike was really good at, he wasn't really known for like getting killer gates and just pulling everybody, but he was a guy that could ride the hell out of his bike, and the Olympic movement those tracks suited him perfectly.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? It suited him perfectly because that big old Olympic starting hill was all about getting just a good enough start to be competitive right at the kink of the starting hill, right when it starts to go to 28 degrees or whatever the heck it was. If he could be competitive right there, no one was going to pass him around that track. The only person that he ended up becoming an Olympic medalist, and helping out him and Jill Kittner for the '08 Beijing Games was like.
I remember her mountain bike career.
Yeah, Jill Kittner had an awesome mountain bike career, and she was an NBL #1 girl, and she had awesome bike handling skills. Better. She could see a race open up better than anybody.
Wow.
So that was a talent with Jill, was that she was just straight up the better racer. She wasn't like necessarily stronger, faster, but she certainly had skills, and she had vision.
Mm-hmm.
She had tremendous vision. Yes.
Because your coaching career is pretty good. Like I remember watching your stuff, listening to your stuff, and you were one of the first people, I believe, to get on the net and show instructionals and things like this.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I'd watch your gate stuff and I'd be like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Putting coaching content out there was, just being vulnerable and putting myself out there. That was my way of giving back, so to speak. And BMX, as a professional, it gave me so much, and I didn't know anything else, right? I continuously loved to travel to the races, and I genuinely loved helping out other racers. I helped out my own competition, for crying out loud. So that was something that like Cecil was really good at. Cecil was good about giving back to not only me but to others, and helping out competitors and helping out. I mean, shoot, he would train with Terry Tennant and push him.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that he was on the same team.
Yeah.
I saw him be a great teammate to Darwin Griffin, Cecil Johns, and so I think that was a characteristic that I acquired from Cecil.
Yeah. So now you're doing your real estate, right?
Yeah, at some point, I had to get out of coaching. It was a good run.
You're one of the pioneers of that, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great coaches out there, I would say. I mean, obviously you have the Richie Andersons, the Greg Hills, Mike Redman, right? And you had a lot of people out there that were high-level coaches. I would say if the Olympics existed back then, those guys would certainly be involved in the Olympics. I think my coaching career was really all about the Olympic movement. Certainly, I mean, as much as I like to do clinics and help out beginning young riders, I absolutely loved it because it's raw in its own form, right? And helping out beginners really helped it'll help improve anyone's patience and communication. But certainly the Olympic movement, while it's cool to be a part of, it became really stressful, very political, and also at the same time dealing with kids' dreams at that level. It's a lot, man. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to have good communication, great communication skills, and
parents.
And you're always reframing. You're basically a psychologist. You're always reframing everything and having to worry about people's feelings and win, lose, or draw. It's tough. It's a lot. Coaching's not for everybody, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So kudos to anybody that can actually get out of pro racing or get out of racing and not have to worry about coaching to make a living.
Yeah, I dabbled in it. I did some Supercross guys. I did Sebastian Tortelli or
you did?
Fonseca.
Yeah.
Donnie Robinson, I was his first coach.
There you go.
It's crazy, and I love it. I think it's amazing. But like you said, it's a leadership role, and it's an emotional roller coaster just as much for them. It is. You have to take on their emotions as well.
Got to take on their emotions, man, and also you got to be accountable for the results.
Yeah.
When they win, we all win. If they lose, then we lose. How I beat myself up. How can I become a better coach? It's a lot of self-reflection. So I don't know. It's interesting. I think I look at coaching as something like again, it was just a continuation of racing professionally and still continuously moving down the path of growth.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think at some point it's like, okay, you know what? I'm done growing. I'm done growing with BMX. You know what I mean? So I think real estate's just all about. It's tough too. It's to reconfigure my identity and my habits and elevate my ability to help people with their dreams.
And doing the house dream now instead of the sports dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
And fighting for them. You know, it's no different, right?
Wow, that's amazing. And it's applicable across, as a martial artist, you know, as a jiu-jitsu black belt, I see the world as jiu-jitsu. And we just talked about how real estate is like BMX. It's everything that's kind of sports related, success related, all has a kind of the same template. Same skills. And so that's why I think a lot of people can go from sports to whatever they want, like you do in real estate, because you just take your training and you make it applicable to your normal job.
Yeah, that's it.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
It's the only thing with real estate is that going to the gym doesn't really help out real estate.
Well, if Cecil was still with us, he'd have a thing for that. But I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much, man.
You are the man, Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Greg Romero. How does that feel? Sounds good, doesn't it?
I think
Hall of Famer.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to the ceremony. Like I said earlier, like you were like, hey, you're a Hall of Famer. It's like, well, I haven't gone through the ceremony yet. And I think it's that mentality, like when you make the Olympic team, you're not necessarily an Olympian until you actually compete in the Olympics. So I've seen someone get bid on that, where it's like they made the team and then they couldn't compete because they got hurt in training. In this case, you know, I'm going to be inducted. It's just I'm you know, when I get the plaque, then I think it'll be surreal. I think when they hand me the plaque, I might have an emotional moment. I don't know yet. I don't know how that's going to be, but
everybody does, right? Everyone's choked up when they when they get up there in front of everybody.
It's quite interesting. But I think for me, honestly, the Hall of Fame really isn't about me. It's really about the people that have helped me along the path.
Sure.
You know, and it's an opportunity for me to say, you know, I can't wait for my parents are going to be there. It's going to be an opportunity for me to say, hey, guys, this is for you. This isn't about me. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm looking forward to actually saying those words.
Amazing.
Right. And so for me, that's what it's all about. It's about giving back.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I do this, right? That's why I sit with you guys and I talk about your careers, because it's awesome. I'm trying to give back as well.
Well, cool, man.
You're the man, Greg, and we thank you for being on the show. I met this guy when he's like 12. That's incredible. So, all right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Holly.
And thanks for everybody for commenting, and subscribe if you can. This goes up on YouTube, BMX Legends Society, Lunch with the Legends. If you subscribe, that helps out, as everybody knows. We're going to let Greg finally get his meal in here. It is Lunch with Legends, so we'd like people to eat. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Look for this on YouTube. Get out and ride.